I have helped thousands of homeowners with their renovation projects. In this short video, I'm going to give you a quick masterclass sharing everything that I've learned. Hi, I'm Dave Chamberlain, founder of Arkiplan. I understand that someone in your position right now, potentially embarking on a home extension or renovation project, can feel completely overwhelmed and filled with anxiety about who to speak to first, what are you going to need, what you don't need, how much you should be paying for things, what you can even build for your budget. I started Arkiplan in 2008, and I've been having daily meetings with potential clients in exactly your position since. This short video is essentially all of that value and knowledge that I provide on those initial meetings, distilled down into a mini masterclass of sorts. I promise that if you watch the whole thing, you'll be really glad that you did. Okay, so here's what I'm going to be briefly covering. Planning permission. What needs planning permission and what doesn't? Builder control. What is builder control approval and do you need it? Structural engineers, when you need one, when you don't. Party wall agreements, will you need one and what are your obligations? Build cost, how much is this renovation actually going to cost to build? And finally, project timeline. How long will this whole design and council permission stage take and when can you actually start building? By the end of this short video, you should feel like most of your questions have been answered. You'll hopefully be feeling a lot calmer about your project, and you should have a pretty clear plan of action going forward. Regardless of whether you use Arkiplan or not, stick around to the end of the video and I'm going to give you my top 10 design tips to save money on your project. And there might even be a discount code in there too if you choose to work with Arkiplan. Okay, let's dive in. So what is the difference between planning, permitted development and builder control? Okay, so there are two council departments that you need to get approval from before you can start building. Planning and builder control. Your local planning department basically assesses how your building project will affect its surroundings, and your builder control department will ensure that the building is structurally sound, safe to live in, thermally efficient, and basically complies with this giant set of documents called the building regulations. You could vaguely sum up the two departments as planning being concerned about the outside of the building and building control being largely concerned with the inside and how it functions. So with this in mind, let's discuss how your specific project is going to be assessed by these two offices. Planning. As a home renovator, your project is going to fall into one of two categories. Either you're going to need planning permission for the work, or your project will be considered permitted development. Permitted development is a scheme developed and enforced by the UK government that essentially forces local planning authorities to approve building work that meets a specific set criteria. If the work needs planning permission, you will need a planning application submitted along with scaled drawings of your whole house before and after, and the council will spend around 8 weeks deciding if the work should be approved. They will be taking into account how the building will look, whether your neighbour's windows are being overshadowed, whether you are infringing on anyone's privacy, many things. Your neighbours will also be consulted and they will be given a chance to object to the works. Any objections received by the planning department will then be assessed as to whether they have merit or not. If the work doesn't require planning permission, you should still apply for something called a lawful development certificate from the planning department. This is essentially written confirmation that the building work doesn't require planning permission, which will come in useful when you eventually come to remortgage or sell your home. A householder planning application typically costs around £300 and a lawful development certificate costs around £150. And you'll pay these fees directly to the council department. What needs planning permission and what doesn't? The permitted development rules are actually very generous, so you can do a lot to your house without planning permission in England and Wales. Extensions, in simple terms, on the back of your house, you can do a 6-metre rear extension if it's terraced or semi-detached, and you can build an 8-metre extension if it's detached. If you want between 3 and 6 metres on a semi or terraced, or between 4 and 8 metres depth on a detached house, your neighbours will be consulted and given the opportunity to offer reasonable objections to the work. There are some 2-storey extensions that can be built without planning permission, but to be honest, it's very difficult to build something useful on most UK properties. Unless you were detached on a big plot, if you want a 2-storey extension, my advice would be to apply for planning permission for it. Okay, back to the ground floor. You can do a side extension that is half the width of the existing house under permitted development. Wraparound extensions will always require planning permission. Any extension to the front of the house, unless it's a really small porch, will also need planning permission. Most loft conversions in England and Wales are built under permitted development. Depending on whether you have a semi-detached or terraced house or a detached house, will determine whether you are allowed to add 40 metres cubed or 50 metres cubed of additional roof volume. This allowance is really generous, so unless you are wanting to add dormers to the front of your roof, it's most likely that you can convert your loft with just building control approval. Garden rooms. Garden rooms, including storage sheds, offices, gyms, summer houses, all of these can be built without planning permission. There are height restrictions, but they're easy to achieve, and you can literally cover half your garden if you want to. Unless the garden room is over 30 meters squared or being used to sleep in, then it's also unlikely to need building control approval too. You can get loads more information about the permitted development rules by visiting planningportal.co.uk. So building control. So you've either got your planning permission accepted or you've sent your application in for a lawful development certificate. And now it's time to get some detailed architectural drawings drafted up, and then you can get them checked by a building control inspector. This is called a full plans building control application. The inspecting officer will thoroughly check every aspect of the design on paper, including the thickness of insulation, the amount of glazing, the structural stability, the risk of fire spread, and also ease of escape. It's a huge list. Once they're happy with the plans, they'll issue an approval certificate, and then you're ready to get building. During construction, it's your builder's responsibility to contact the building control officer at various stages throughout the build so that they can come and check the work as it progresses on site. Eventually, once the project is finished and it meets the officer's exacting standards, they will issue a completion certificate, which you can then use when selling, remortgaging, or insuring your home. The building control department will quote their fees depending on the project size, but if you set aside around £1,000 for this part, you should be fine. Next, structural engineers. Do you need one? Now then, in addition to hiring an architect or an architectural designer, there's a really good chance that you're also going to need to hire a structural engineer too. Every type of loft conversion will need a new floor at a minimum. Most will also need steel work to hold up the ridge of the existing roof. The majority of extensions these days require existing load-bearing walls to be removed as people seek to create larger, open-plan living spaces at the back of their house. People often want vaulted ceilings, full-width glass doors, or glazed roof lanterns. All of this requires the input of a structural engineer. They will calculate what steel or timber beams need to go where to keep everything standing up as it should. The building control officer will check these calculations at the same time as they check the architectural drawings, and then the builder will use the calculations to order the correct steel beams and install them in the correct places. If you hire an architect, they will ordinarily recommend an engineer to you, or they might advise you to find your own, who will only be able to quote you for the engineering work after your detailed drawings are finished. In the context of a domestic renovation, a party wall agreement is essentially your neighbours giving you permission to either excavate the ground on the shared boundary, excavate within 3 meters of their house walls, or to place new beams or joists into a shared party wall. This process could get quite complicated if the neighbour objects to the work in any way, but the vast majority of party wall agreements are handled easily by you simply providing the neighbour with what's called a party wall notice letter. If the neighbour does object to the work in writing, you should then hire a party wall surveyor who will work with you to prepare something called a party wall award. That essentially seeks to alleviate the neighbour's concerns while still allowing you to build. This can get a bit expensive, which is why I'm a huge proponent of having a friendly conversation with your neighbour before submitting any applications or notice letters. I always say it's far better to get unofficial objections rather than official ones. Build cost, the million-dollar question. How much is the building work going to cost? Well, doing things the conventional way, someone in your position is really stuck between a rock and a hard place. There are up-to-date per square meter figures available online that you can use for extensions and lofts. Check a Trade has a really good page where you can search for project type like extension or loft conversion. They aren't a huge help, to be honest, as they'll quote something like £1,500 to £3,000 per square meter. Whether you shoot lower or higher on that massive price bracket depends on the level of finish you expect, where you are in the country, what type of builder you want to hire, whether you'll be DIYing any of the work, whether you'll have any luxury items like a high-end kitchen or tons of glass. It's a minefield. You could get a builder out, but they'll always want drawings before giving you an accurate price, which leaves you wondering whether to spend money on an architect at the risk that whatever they design will be way outside of your budget, and then it was all a waste. So yeah, stuck in a minefield. I'll come back to this. Timeline. How long does all of this take? If your project requires planning permission, the council are going to take 8 to 10 weeks to come back with a decision. A lawful development certificate application will often take about the same amount of time. The council building control department will take around 5 to 8 weeks to check your drawings, but you can speed this up a lot by using a private building control company instead of the local authority. If your project can be built under permitted development, you can save time by submitting the lawful development certificate application and the building control application at the same time. i.e., you can be confident that the planning department will approve the application, so it's not a big risk to spend money on detailed drawings and builder control fees. How long the whole process from design to starting on site largely depends on the architect or architectural designer you choose to hire. It's a common complaint we hear about using local architects on domestic projects, in that they tend to drag on and on and on as the project can be quite far down their priority list. And just waiting for your applications to be decided can take up to 4 months. So waiting months for concept designs and drawings, you could end up waiting a year just to get building. Okay, so what exactly am I doing here, giving you all of this information for free? Well, I started Arkiplan in 2008 with the vision of providing an architectural design service that was perfectly crafted for homeowner building projects just like yours. The traditional architect service at the time felt stale, clunky, and just not well suited to regular homeowner projects. Renovators in your position more often than not place huge importance on build cost, transparent upfront, manageable pricing, and design that prioritizes function over form. Not to mention they want to feel comfortable and they want to be spoken to in clear and simple terms, rather than feeling bamboozled and kept largely in the dark about what they are paying for. Over the years, we've helped thousands of homeowners navigate the complex renovation process. At Arkiplan, we created 3 design packages, one of which will suit your project perfectly. All of the packages include us sending a surveyor out to scan your property inside and out with a 3D camera. This will give us all of the visuals and measurements we need to get your drawings drafted. You'll then work remotely with one of our in-house architectural designers to get your house looking and functioning exactly as you want it to. We'll get you all the permissions you need, and you'll be handed a pack of deliverables that you can simply give to a builder and get things moving. Our Essentials package is suitable if you just want to get planning permission or a lawful development certificate for your project. Our Standard package will also include us producing detailed architectural drawings and submitting a full planned builder control application on your behalf. Our Premium package is really the jewel in the Arkiplan crown. This package was built from the ground up with the specific intention of removing as many potential pain points or anxious moments from the traditional architect process as possible. Worry that you won't get planning permission and the whole thing was a waste of time and money? No stress. In the unlikely event that your planning application is rejected, we will offer to either refund all of the money you've paid to us, or we'll continue to work with you for free until a similar scheme is approved. We'll just keep redesigning and resubmitting until we get something through. Nervous about the build cost and whether you'll be able to afford it? On our Premium package, your build budget will be actively included as part of the design process. We'll get a quantity surveyor to produce a detailed, interactive build cost report for your work before we apply for any council permissions, so you can check if the design is affordable to you first. Once the detailed drawings are done, we'll rerun the report, and then you've got a fully itemized quote to compare against any builder's quotes you receive. You'll have full transparency on who is over or undercharging you and in what specific areas. There are no surprise bills arriving further down the line, as we will include all structural engineers' calculations, priced from the start. Regardless of the side of the scheme, if it transpires further down the line that you need 10 steel beams and vertical posts or special foundations, then that's on us to cover the cost rather than you. If your project requires a combination of planning applications and permitted development applications, all of that is included. We'll submit your builder control application to a private inspector, which means it will be checked and approved in about a week instead of 6. Lastly, we'll draw everything in 3D to help you visualize your new home, and we'll write your party wall notice letters and tell you when and how to serve them to your neighbors. What we are essentially selling here is peace of mind, simplicity and efficiency at a time that is notoriously anxiety-producing, long-winded, confusing and overwhelming. If you want to get started, it's very low risk on your part. It's just a £499 deposit, which gets us to come out and survey your property, and then you'll have a proper design meeting with one of our architectural designers, in which they'll be sketching on the screen and working up a draft proposal for your new home. After that meeting, we'll send you a formal agreement over, and you can commit to getting full drawings and council permissions, etc. Only if you sign that agreement will we put you on a 3-month payment plan, so the remaining balance can be paid gradually in installments, which should make things much more manageable for you. Once you sign the agreement, we'll get to work immediately, and the first draft of your plans will be sent over in just 2 weeks. All you need to do to get started is to click continue under your preferred package, and we'll present you with a calendar to book in your scan survey. If you have any questions at all, just reach out to our sales team using the web chat feature at the bottom of our site. Now, I did promise you that if you hung around until the end, I would share my top money-saving tips when renovating, so here they are. Number 1, turn your existing small kitchen into a utility or boot room. If you're extending with a new open plan kitchen diner, you could just repurpose the existing small kitchen. Reuse the cabinetry, the plumbing is already there, the floor is already tiled, and quite often you'll even have a door to the side access too. Number 2, put windows and glass doors in with 550mm reveals. What this means is if you put windows or glass doors right into the corner of your extension, you'll need to install steel posts that will need to be calculated by an engineer too. If you leave a 550mm gap on the internal reveal, you can just use an off-the-shelf lintel above the window or doors and avoid expensive structural support. Number 3, choose a flat roof instead of a pitched roof. A flat roof could actually end up costing you 50% of what a pitched tiled roof does. Just bear in mind that a pitched roof will likely last longer. Number 4, don't leave your builder to source big ticket items like roof lanterns or bifold doors. Use online firms, overseas companies or eBay sellers to source these items yourself. Then you can get exactly what you want for much cheaper than the places your builder usually uses. Number 5, take the phone numbers of any subcontractors that your builder uses so that you can go to them directly in the future for maintenance or follow-up work without having to contribute to the main contractor's mortgage. Number 6, if the build budget is tight and it's your forever home, then ask your builder for a shell-only quote. This will pay for them to build a watertight shell of walls, floor and roof. You can then carry out the remaining internal work as the money becomes available. Number 7, rather than removing the whole wall at the back of your house, just consider removing the existing doors and windows and retain the lintels above. No, it won't be fully open plan, but you will be able to creatively zone the space probably and save yourself a lot of money on structural supports. Number 8, use a company like Peak Home if you are still unsure if you want to move or improve. For a really small cost, they'll tell you what's possible on your house and for what approximate build cost. Number 9, install a holding bathroom suite or kitchen until budget permits. Prioritize spending cash on the big value adds, i.e. additional floor area, and then you can install that dream kitchen or bathroom when the funds are available. Number 10, and finally, as a reward for making it through this whole presentation, if you enter the code whole thing when paying your Arkiplan deposit, we'll deduct £100 from the total cost. Whether you use us or not, thank you so much for your interest in Arkiplan, and I hope you found this useful. If you want to get started with us, just click continue under your preferred package on your quote, and we can't wait to start working with you.